What's up, YouTube? And welcome to the video of games I picked up in the month of January 2019. This month I actually got a couple new arcade boards, so I wanted to start off by showing you those. First one of these is a title that's very common to console gamers, but probably not so much to arcade gamers, and that is the original Bomberman for arcade. This game is kind of unique because it was not developed by Hudson Soft, the actual owners of the Bomberman license. It was produced by Irem, who obviously produced a lot of other arcade and console games. It's very good. I've been playing it a lot this month, and the only thing I'll say is I've kind of gotten used to some of the newer Bomberman 2D releases, and that they had that feature that you could kick the bombs along the way if you got a power-up. This game does not have that, and that's put me in some pretty precarious situations. I guess I didn't realize how much I rely on that feature on some of the newer games. But overall, a solid arcade title. Kind of surprised this wasn't a bigger hit. This is the Japanese version of the board that is called Bomberman, but the US version, I believe, was called Dyna Blaster for some reason. I don't know if it's a licensing thing or what. So it's kind of interesting because the board has Dyna Blaster markings on it too, but it actually comes up with the title screen of Bomberman, as you can see. So this was one of the two arcade games I got this month. Let me transition here for one moment and I'll show you the other one. Alright, and this is the other arcade board I picked up this month. This is Heated Barrel by TAD Corporation. Not to be confused with the much more common Heavy Barrel. This is a very interesting run and gun with a Cowboys and Indians theme. I guess the best way I would describe this game is it plays a lot like a side-scrolling Gunsmoke versus a up-scrolling. Game is actually supports up to 4 players simultaneous, so there's a lot of different characters in the game. It's gotten a little flack on the internet for not exactly being probably the most PC with some of the character animations in this day and age, but I can say that it's very quality just unknown title for the early 90s arcade scene. I don't really know why this wasn't a bigger hit. TAD Corporation was a pretty strange company. They were most known for games like Cabal and Toki, but this was one of their final releases before they closed up shop in the early 90s. So very happy to get both of these in my collection. Give me one more moment here to transition, and I will show you the console games I picked up for this month. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue on with the rest of the video. I'll show you some of the console games I got this month. And what I can say is overall this month I did not do a lot of travel like I usually do. The weather was really bad here in the Midwest. It's been super cold, snowy, all the above. And didn't really do a whole lot of, trekking around like I usually do. So my game pickups are pretty limited. I will say most of the games that I got were based on just stuff that I was looking for and a couple random things I found over the month. So let's go ahead and get started. First one of these is a game I've been wanting for a long time on the Sega Master System. This is a Euro exclusive release, Dynamite Ducks. This game should have come out in the US as far as I'm concerned. I think it probably would have done okay here. The Master System was kind of starved for little beat-em-up, cute platformer type games. This was a early Sega arcade game, actually, and it's one that I'd like to find the arcade board of, based on now playing it through on the Master System. Very good game as far as the gameplay. It's very strange. It is a beat-em-up, but very cute in style. Has some odd cameo appearances from Colonel Sanders, and essentially you just run through beating up dogs and things like that with your duck. He has a super punch function that's kind of cool. You wind it up and then knock things out. But a lot of oddball animations and things like that going on with the game. The only thing I can say for it is very, very short. I beat the game in like 25-30 minutes. So it definitely shows its arcade heritage, but a lot of fun and kind of a shame we didn't get this here. Very happy to get a copy of this. The other thing I got for Master System this month was actually I found in a game store, and I was completely surprised to find this because I've been looking for it for a long time, and that is Golden Axe Warrior. If you've played the other Golden Axe games, this is pretty much nothing like them. This game is Legend of Zelda 1 ripoff to the max. Put a few hours into this month. It's actually pretty fun to play. It has a nice large world map. If you like Legend of Zelda 1, you will like this game, but I would say that compared to some of the other games that are very close in style, I like things like Utopia 1 and 2 on the TurboGrafx a little bit better. Very rare late release game on the US Master System. It's really just the Euro release with a different barcode on the back, which was just a sticker they stuck over the European barcode. So kind of lazy in how they brought this over here, but the Master System really wasn't doing that well at that time, so I understand. The one thing I would say I don't really like about this game is the way the world map is set up. It's very hard to tell which dungeon that you need to beat kind of in what order. I found myself like at dungeon 4 before I'd even done or even found dungeons 1, 2, and 3. So it's very unusual in how you progress through the map, but you do need to accumulate items that you'll carry dungeon to dungeon, just like Legend of Zelda. No differences there. So very happy to get this in the collection. Like I said, I've been looking for this one for a while. It is a very expensive game for the Master System, but I would say it's maybe worth it. Just depends how much you really like Zelda games. I got one game for Sega Genesis this month. This is Saturday Night Slam Masters by Capcom. One of the few Capcom releases for the system, really. This game I had on the Super Nintendo for a long time. I'm not really into wrestling games, but it does have some interesting animations, and it is very Capcom in style. So I thought I'd check out the Genesis version since I found this in a store just kind of at random. So haven't tried it yet, but we'll see how it goes. I got a game for the Game Boy, and this was kind of a mess up on my part. This is NHL 96. For some reason, I thought this was like a really rare sports title. I think I was thinking of one of the other sports games and not this one. So probably a soccer release. This one is not that uncommon, although it was somewhat late for the Game Boy, I guess you could say. But just another one off my collection list of games I need. I'm still not really sure if I'm going for the full set or not. I got one game for the Wii this month. This is No More Heroes 2, Desperate Struggle. I just got the first game in the series last month, so I'm very late to this series. I know there is a new release out on the Switch for this, but I haven't played either one of them yet, so I really can't talk about whether I like it or not. So I know this game is one of the slightly more expensive games on the Wii, and I got it really cheap, so I was kind of happy to find it. And if I ever find some time, I'll check it out. I got 2 games for the NES this month that were upgrades. Obviously, I have a complete Nintendo set that I've talked about before, but it is nice to get some upgrades to complete in box copies whenever I can. This was a really clean copy of Bionic Commando for the NES. Found this in a local half-price book, so I was really surprised to get it in this condition, and really couldn't say no. It was a decent price, and these early Capcom games in nice shape are getting much tougher to get. So I'll have an extra cartridge of this and manual, I believe, but I don't think I had the box, so this is the first time I've ever had the box. And kind of cool artwork for a game that's definitely a classic on the system. I got one other NES game complete upgrade this month, and that is for Days of Thunder. This game is not a good game in any way, shape, or form. However, there's one thing about this particular copy that made me want to get it, and that is the Kmart price sticker on it for $49.97. I pity the person that paid $50 for this, but not only did it have a Kmart sticker on there, and it had one on the top of the box too. So with Kmart and Sears kind of on their dying days, especially locally, I thought it'd be kind of neat to have something that said Kmart on it, because I kind of like retail history too, so just kind of neat to add that particular copy to my collection, even though it's not really a quality title. I got a few games for Sony systems this month. First one of these was Dragon's Crown for the PS Vita. I've had Dragon's Crown on the PS3 for a while, and I've been really hooked on Dragon's Crown Pro on the PS4. So much so that I figured I should probably just get the portable version, and maybe I can play it more on the go. But I haven't played the Vita version yet. So what I'm hoping, and I don't really know how all this works because I'm not super techie yet with the Vita, but I think you can transfer your save file so that you can play the PS4 save file on this copy. I may be wrong about that, but I know some of the Vita games let you do that kind of thing. If anyone knows like how simple that is, or just how you get that set up, please leave me a comment. I'd love to know. I'm sure I could figure it out if I actually read up on it on the internet, but I'm kind of lazy, so if you got a shortcut to doing that, please let me know. The other Vita game I got this month was one that I've been really trying to track down since I got a Vita a few months ago. This game shows up on like GameStop systems, like their web searches all over the place. And then every time I go to the store or call the store, it's always a loose copy. So I actually had to buy this on eBay because I was getting really fed up of running into loose copies of this. And that is for Shinobito 2, The Revenge of Zen. My understanding is it is kind of a Tenchu-style game, stealth ninja type action. I played about 10 minutes of it, then got interrupted by a phone call, and then forgot to pick it back up. So I need to put a little more time into this one, obviously. This was a very early release, I believe, for the US Vita, but it is not a high print run game, it doesn't seem like, because there's not a whole lot of complete copies out there for sale. And definitely seems to be going up in price a little bit. So very happy to get this. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this is part 2 in the series, but we never got part 1 in the US. Apparently Japan and Europe did on the PS2, and we never did. So interesting they kept the numbering consistent, even though. I got one game for the PS4 this month. What I'll say about PS4 is I really haven't even been wanting to get any PS4 games this month. I've been completely addicted to Monster World and the Cursed Kingdom that I got last month. The game is great. If you have not bought it yet, you definitely need to get it. It is fantastic in every way. But that said, one of my games I ordered from Limited Run months and months ago finally decided to show up, and that is for the 8-bit Adventure Anthology. This compiles 3 NES point-and-click type adventure games. I do like these games quite a bit. I used to play Deja Vu quite a bit on the NES, and I also liked what I did play of Uninvited, but I haven't put a ton of time into my NES copy of that. I have not had any time to even pop this disc in. I've just been too hooked on Monster Boy whenever I'm playing PS4, but looking forward to it. I would say I'm kind of tired of Limited Run in the sense that they collect your money and then sit on it for months and months and months and then finally decide to deliver the product. I think it's kind of a crappy business plan, and I don't know how many more games I'm going to be buying from them unless it's just something that really blows me away. So anyway, that's my little mini rant on them. That's it for games this month. I'm going to talk about just some other oddball accessories and things I got. First one of these was the Sega Saturn Netlink. I do have a full Sega Saturn collection and also the Netlink exclusive games, but I never actually had the Netlink unit. And a buddy of mine is closing his game store that's in town, and decided just to let me have this because he knew that I had a Saturn collection, and why not have it with the Netlink adapter. So don't really think I'm going to be hooking up a phone line to it to test it out, but I'm sure it still would fire up if I did. He gave me the Netlink browser disk that goes with it, and then the interesting keyboard dongle that lets you use a PS2 input keyboard into the Saturn plug. So I guess if you didn't want to buy the specific Saturn keyboard, you could use your old like compact Presario keyboard on your Saturn. Crazy they made that thing. So anyway, I have that now if I ever want to go back and try the Netlink for the Saturn. A controller I got this month that I've been looking for a while is the PS1 analog controller. And you're saying to yourself, that's just a DualShock. No, it isn't. This is actually what preceded the DualShock. It does not have any rumble features, but it does have the analog sticks, and if you can tell, I'm not sure if the camera will show this, they are actually concave, the tops of them, so the surface of them is very different than how it looks on the DualShock, where you have that convex surface to it. A couple other little things about the DualShock the Sony analog controller is the handles are actually a little bit longer than they are on this typical DualShock controller or the original PS1 controller. So it's actually very comfortable to hold. I've been trying it out a little bit. And the other thing that makes it a little bit unique is the R2 and R1 buttons have this little ridge on the top of them, and the surface of them is a little bit different too. So interesting that they developed this and then scrapped it very quickly. I think this came out maybe 97, and then by 98 is when we had the DualShock in the US. So it didn't really get a lot of support, and then they just really used the things they learned from this controller, moved it into the DualShock. But I think it's an interesting piece of PS1 history. There's not a lot of these out there, and they're starting to go up in price. So if you see one of these just in a junk bin, definitely go ahead and grab it, because they're starting to go up, and just kind of a unique controller. Some other stuff I got this month is some manuals and magazines, and just one other oddball accessory. My same buddy that was closing his game store sold me all of his Sega Game Gear cases, so I got about 15 of these, I think, and that should take care of putting all my loose Game Gear games into the original plastic cases. They're really nice because the Game Gear games are not flat, so you can't really stack them very evenly, but if you got the cases, you can, so that it will stop my leaning tower of Game Gear games that I have going on. I got a manual as well, and that is for Space Invaders on the Game Boy. And I thought this one was kind of neat because it comes with a Super Game Boy bonus instruction booklet. And this talks about all the additional modes and variations that the Super Game Boy version unlocks in the game. This was one of the games that I would say, like Donkey Kong for Game Boy, that was truly optimized for the Super Game Boy. And probably a launch title whenever the Super Game Boy released. So kind of neat. I like Taito games in particular, and I thought it was just something to help make that copy a little bit more complete. I got a couple arcade manuals this month. This is not something I usually buy, but I just bought that Heated Barrel arcade game, and I found the manual that goes with it. Had to buy it separately, but somebody else was selling this on eBay, and just makes the game a little bit more complete. I like getting the original manuals. Most of these are pretty boring. They're like schematics and things like that. They don't really tell you much about the game because they're not really intended for consumers. But I thought this one was particularly neat because arcade game piracy was such a problem in the early 90s that they came up with this crazy logo of a arcade board in handcuffs that probably is a bootleg one, and just talking about what a crime this would be. So I'm actually so interested in this logo, I'm trying to get somebody to make t-shirts up with this. I would wear it. I think it's just a neat design, and we'll see where that goes, but definitely a neat little bonus in this heated barrel manual. The other manual I got for an arcade game is for Space Bomber. This is a Psycho-made shooter. It is kind of a Galaga or Space Invader style shooter in that it's single screen. Very unknown game. You see a lot of the games from Psycho being put on these compilations now. For some reason this game has never gotten a home version, and I've owned the arcade version for quite some time. This one is pretty much all in Japanese, but it has some neat little diagrams of all the control functions and some of the demo modes and things like that that the arcade game has. So neat to get this, just again to make that copy of the arcade board a little bit more complete. The last thing I got this month is some GameFan magazines, and I've been trying to get a lot of old game magazines lately, especially some GameFans. They're some of the more interesting ones to read. They're not as kiddie in nature and that kind of thing. They are kind of pretentious in their writing style, which I think most people know if they've read these, but interesting to take a look back, and they do actually feature some import and arcade game coverage that a lot of the game magazines at the time didn't do. So first one of these is probably the coolest one. This is the Castlevania Symphony of the Night issue from around 1997. What's interesting about this is the game hadn't even been subtitled Symphony of the Night when they released this issue. I think they had the exclusive on the game from Konami, and some neat, game screens and things like that inside whenever the game was still in development. And then shortly thereafter, this game was on several game magazine covers when the subtitle was fully launched and announced and all that kind of thing. So very nice artwork on this one. Some of the GameFan covers are a little bit hit or miss with the artwork, but this one I think is definitely a good one. So happy to get that in the collection. The other ones I got I think are a little bit later. These are like 99 and 2000 era. Some of the last issues before the magazine went under. First one of these is for Jade Cocoon, which was a little-known PS1 RPG that also had a sequel on PS2, but not exactly a huge hit. Kind of unusual to see it on the cover of a magazine. Then there was a Star Wars Phantom Menace cover because everyone thought that movie was going to be great, and it's not because it's Star Wars, and I'm not a fan. Then we had kind of a neat Dreamcast issue whenever the console was not out yet, but really the first full look at Sonic Adventure, which was going to be the savior of Sega, and, well, it didn't really end up that way, unfortunately. The last one of these I thought was kind of the most unique of the covers. It has Spawn on the cover, which is not that unusual in itself, but what was interesting is this was only talking about the arcade release of Spawn and the Demon's Hand, and it was not even announced for a Dreamcast or any other console release at that point. So they were just so excited about the arcade game itself that they decided to put it in the cover, which is pretty risky in this in this era of magazines, but very good issue. I liked these later, some of these last issues that they put out, because they finally got some of their backgrounds and graphics sorted out, and the magazines were a lot easier to read by the time you got to this point. So good issues. Again, I like adding these to the collection. I'll probably be chasing down some more in the near future. So that pretty much does it for the month. Hopefully you liked this video. I had kind of a mix of arcade and console stuff. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.